All right, I thought I would talk about PRP versus CAC. Um, PRPP versus CACC, as I've called them. Um, now, if anyone's watched my videos, then they know I'm being kind of serious topic oriented and so on, and I'm still going to be a little in that zone a little bit, but I'm going to start trying to force myself to get into less serious stuff than I'm naturally inclined towards these days. Um, I'm gonna put a pin on this, but basically, I feel like I'm not allowed to have fun unless it's like an effort to make money or something like that, or like some sort of using fiction to study possibilities for real world activism or something. You know, um, I'll get into why that's like a thing and like some other people that have done it and how they approached it and like my personal reasons for feeling this way. But basically, the reason why I feel that way is because I feel guilty because I don't have a job. So it's like I can't let myself have fun or else I'm a leech. I'm autistic and schizophrenic, so some people might just go like, "Oh, okay, well, you're really screwed. You don't need to have a job necessarily. You're kind of a bit of a write-off, I guess. One of those people that would legitimately deserve disability. Um, you know. Um, but deep down inside, I feel the need to try and like perform service to my society and so on. So like when I say I feel guilt, when I say I don't feel like I can play video games unless it's to earn money, it's sort of like a sort of a adult responsibilities thing and trying to build a life after 40 years and 30 years of being a man. Well, 10 years of adult life being a man child, and then like 10 years of like trying to make up for it and like getting into that zone for a long time and sort of trying to shift away, but old habits die hard and so on. So, yeah. It's a very conscientiousness kind of situation for me. The drive to earn good things and to serve the good of others and so on. That's what my activism's basically been about. I figured for a long time that I would just be on disability forever. Um, Keep in mind this is about 2008, so YouTube as a career wasn't so possible, and I didn't really think this through for a long time. I just went along with what I already decided. And I just figured activism and like protect my society from catastrophe and like just enjoy welfare and like I'll never have children, I'll never have a wife, but like hey, whatever. I'll have a comfy, relatively comfortable life on disability because it pays twice the amount of rent overall, and like you know, and nowadays it pays about the same as rent. So it's like, ugh. Personally, I live in a bit of a lucky place that's half the cost of market rent, but it kind of shows. But I'm grateful for it because otherwise I'd be homeless. So it's like I lucked out basically, and so on. But I'm looking at my life and I'm kind of like, inflation, taxation, tariff wars, and it's like, oh my god, my life's getting worse over time, and it's like, so I gotta fix this. I gotta fix this and make something of myself and like make a career and all that. And that's kind of what's pressing on me. Um, but someone said there's no that staring into the abyss of the end of civilization is a hell of a drug, Like that's what my activism was basically trying to prevent, and like basically all the things I had nightmares about in 2003 and 4 have basically happened since 2008. Like all of my nightmares have happened on some level. Like all of them. Like all this bullshit, all this fake crap, all this manipulation and tyranny and barbarism and like the invasions and like the global insecurity and like the wars popping off and like all of it was like, holy crap, dude, this is what I had nightmares about. But at the same time, now that we've been through it, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I guess people have a handle on it after all a little bit. It's not quite as catastrophic as I imagined in my nightmares, but it has all happened on some level. And the way that I've soothed myself is by convincing myself that I've been a bit of a mentor or a guide or a muse to an influential person. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've been. I kind of think it's true, maybe, but like, I'm not sure. It's kind of up in the air. But, anyways, so that's how I've soothed myself while my life gets worse and so on, kind of like a bit of a vanguard intellectual explorer of the human experience muse, which is like an inspiration for art, for an artist, basically. Not like a, not like handed down by the word of God, but sort of like, oh, I didn't think of that like that before, and that gives me other ideas that I come up with. Kind of is what a muse is for an artist, and so on. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do, at least, or doing. If I have an influential person's ear, I'm not sure if I do or not. I think I do, though. Anyways, whatever the case, I'm basically coming up to the point where most of my insights are like, yeah, whatever. We kind of already knew it, kind of, at this point. And like, I have to accept that I've mentored them as best as I can, and that they're their own person, which is what I approached them for in the first place, to mentor them for, because I trusted them. And they've become the master now, basically. I've taught them what I can. They're developing themselves further in other ways that I haven't. And it's time for me to catch up in the ways that they're good at. And I've hit a ceiling in the things that I'm good at that they're not so good at. And they're catching up to me in that regard. So I got to catch up in the ways that they're better off and so on to even match them anymore. And that's philosophy is one area. Politics, religion, and psychology, Carl Jung's psychology and Christian religion, and politics. I've already basically mastered and like obsessively studied to the point where like there's nothing really new under the sun, particularly nothing earth shattering, no big changes, no big tectonic shifts necessary to get a good worldview, and so on. Philosophy is something of a black unknown territory in terms of some of the details and so on. And I figure I'll actually kind of enjoy listening to Gregory B. Sadler's core concepts for like 700 to 800 videos at 20 minutes each or 15 minutes each of talking about philosophy concepts. So that'll be like a treat and like something to pass the time that's sort of like potentially productive in the end too somehow, and so on. And what I'll do is I'll start doing that for a while and saving up for a new computer, because I've got a 500 megabyte virtual memory or graphics card, and a megabyte is a 1,000th of a gigabyte. So if you see GB VRAM or something like that, I've got 500 megabytes, which is half a gigabyte of VRAM, and like other people have like 8 to 16 gigabytes. So I'm like, it's 1/16 or 1 out of 32 times the power on my what I call my crap top. It's a joke about crappy laptop, basically. Anyways, anyways, so all of this is pairing up and so on, and why I've been so obsessed with serious stuff and trying my best and burning out and getting headaches and like teaching as much as I possibly can if I'm actually listened to by someone important, in order to get them to navigate it and prepare for various potentials and so on. And I gave a gift of the outline of different situations that are possible, that are negative generally, and I think they used it. I think they used it. So it's like, okay, now that you've seen the worst case scenario, um, you can prepare to avoid it because you know what it looks like. So you can start to imagine possibly what the good situation will look like. Um, and start doing that. And I'm by the way, my right wing my full right wing manifesto and core pillars, three core pillars video is basically me outlining what a good society would actually do for its people and so on. And not just like politicians and so on, but like the actual communities and so on, and like the civic bodies and the civil bodies and like the independent, politically minded a little bit, but also like just generically community minded, like your church fellows or your neighborhood or your hobby clubs or something like that, or your gym or like your local bar even, or something, like those kinds of things is community. The places you hang out with people on a regular basis. Chat groups are community in a sense as well, and so on. Um, so that's like a thing I've done. And what I've been trying to do is outline the general situation in such a way that they can rely on um, rely on the outlines and like just refer back to them a little bit and see like um, new details in a certain light, or new light, old details in a new light or something, um, with this in mind, and like it'll be a guidepost hopefully for them and so on, for the serious stuff. Um, so I mentioned politics, religion, philosophy, and psychology, or psychology and philosophy. And I've neglected philosophy for some time, so I'm going to get more into that as a way to move away from the politics and culture war and as much. I won't abandon it completely, but I'm moving away from it heavily, I think, going forwards, or like half and half at least, in the favor of the following things. And that is culture, art, community, and career. Now, the thing is, politics, religion, psychology, and philosophy, they have their own arguments as to why they're important. Philosophy and religion dictate the way the world works. Politics dictates how societies work, and psychology dictates how people as individuals work. So, like, obviously, there's a serious topic argument for why those are serious matters and they should be studied and so on. And that's kind of my thing. I'm a very serious individual, somewhat at the moment. But I wanted to get back into like a little bit of silly and like whimsical and like fun and like, but still actually like make something of myself and so on. So I figured out how I want to do that basically and so on. And I have a lot of trouble justifying playing video games because I don't have a job, and it's like I feel utterly driven to try and like do something useful for society at large, like as much as possible until I get a headache or something, and then like from the mental strain and so on. So like I know it's wrong, I know it's not healthy, I know it might be even like preventing me from getting better insights or something, but like I just feel this constant drive to grind, like the alpha male or sigma male grind set kind of joke, and nonstop and so on. And maybe that's the wrong way to go about it, but that's kind of the motivation I've had to try and make up for being a man child in the past and so on. So maybe this is a phase, and I've been burned as a man child. I became schizophrenic and had to rework my entire worldview and stuff like that. So, like, I've been in some serious situations. I faced death, I faced agony and torture. Like, I've tortured myself basically to make up for wrongdoing and stuff like that. And I've, like, had love and lost it. So I understand Shakespeare's it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all, and so on. Um, you know, Anyways, culture, art, community, career. Basically, that's a glorified way of saying I want to play video games in a like a bro session, and talk to chat, and chat talks to me, and I stream the game live so that they can watch it, and we can interact with each other and so on as an entertainer. It's a fancy way of saying that, basically. But I couldn't justify it for the longest time until I basically was like, well, if I get personally rich, then I can personally help everyone I care about. I can help my socials, I can help my neighbors, I can help my family and my friends, and like I can help my wider community in the city, and like like stuff like that, basically. And that's kind of how I mean, you know what I mean. So if I sound like I don't want to play video games, it's not that I don't actually want to play video games, or maybe it's that I don't not. Maybe I do not want to play video games in actuality, but I definitely want to play video games, if that makes sense. Um, and I just feel guilty, and that's why I don't play them. I mean, I've played like 30 minutes of video games a week, basically, at most. So it's like, and to be honest, it does feel a little empty because I'm like trying to like compare playing a video game to like studying God and the infinite and the divine, or like the various ways of living life, or like how people think to understand other people so I can socialize better, or like how people interact and decide what should be done about various issues in society, or like how people should behave and how to force people to behave certain ways, or not to force them but allow them to be that way. Like whether or not we should let people do bad things or something, depending on the bad thing. Because maybe the forcing them not to do the bad thing hurts more people more unjustly than letting the bad thing happen. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So, like, I've been chasing meaning and purpose and so on, and like, just stopping and smelling the roses and playing some video games is like, it feels empty to me compared to like that. And now I am schizophrenic, I guess, but I swear to God I had signs from God for a while. I think I still get them. Um, But that made me think, oh my God, God exists. Wow, I have to study everything about him. And what I'm gradually learning is there's a glass ceiling to how much we can understand God in this world to some extent. At least if we're chasing after him in a certain sense. In the Sigma grind set way, at least. And like, what I'm kind of beginning to understand, I think, is that stopping and smelling the roses is actually a part of understanding God, not just the grind set. Not just the grind. Um, and like, it's in the Bible. On the seventh day, God rested. So like, even God rests, so I should too. Kind of is what I guess I. I just remember that phrase, that quote from the Bible, and on the seventh day God rested, and I was like, oh, I haven't rested a single day most of the time, basically, for like months. I mean, there was like a 6 week period where I didn't play a single video game at all. So like, like holy crap, dude. I'm like serious minded, obsessed. Anyways, so basically, if I seem a little too serious or something, or humorless or something, it's because I'm trying to prevent the collapse of Western civilization, basically, because I'm terrified of what will happen if it does, for someone who's disabled and schizophrenic like myself. On welfare, you know. So I'm trying my best to make sure society is good and healthy and so on, so that I can be good and healthy. And the stress is killing me. And at the same time, part of what I was telling myself was, even if the stress kills me and I succeed, at least I made it good for other people of my own tribe and so on. Yeah. But it's not getting me money, it's not getting me a career, it's not getting me a wife or children, it's not getting me clout, it's not getting me a following or anything like that particularly, except one or two influential people maybe. So they're getting followings and doing their own thing and succeeding, and maybe I'm helping them, but I'm not getting anything except pride in I can affect the world, but I don't get recognition, I don't get money. And I know that those things are not necessarily something you should chase after entirely, but like I would like a little bit so that I can actually get a wife and children, basically. Yeah. Just make a living, basically, and have a family and so on. So like I'm still going to talk about the occasional politics, philosophy, religion, and psychology thing, but I'm going to start studying philosophy more, because that's not one of the things I study much right now. I've studied a little bit here and there. And I'm going to study culture and art, and like learn, just sort of vibe with culture and art, which is one of the things I need to do, because basically my weakness is I'm not taking it slow, I'm not relaxing, I'm not taking breaks, basically, unless I'm like absolutely like hurty brain, headache, or physically exhausted from the stress, and like I'm at a breaking point kind of thing. And what I need to learn is to relax a little bit more than that. Maybe only a little bit more, but a little bit more regardless than that. So I can sleep on it and let inspiration strike more readily and so on, and just not force things, and let things happen instead of trying to force them, basically. And enjoying things for their own sake, basically. So like, compared to studying God, everything pales in comparison to in purpose and meaning, basically. But like, that's the grind set mentality in a sense, because on the seventh day God rested, and rest is a part of godliness, basically. So like, I should rest too, and relax, and have a little leisure time, and have a little fun and play. Bishop Robert Barron says play is an end of in of itself. It's got no purpose other than itself, and it's valuable all the same. So it's like, okay. Now the term for me is scrupulosity. It's based on scruples, or the scrupulous, which is like an iron instrument that you carve or scrape things off yourself, or your skin off yourself. It's kind of a biting iron instrument that hurts for cleaning and so on. And the obsession with being morally perfect, it's not just like trying to do your best, it's like burning yourself out doing your best. because if you let up even a little bit, you don't trust yourself with having a little bit of relaxation. It's like hard driving, sprinting. Imagine trying to sprint everywhere you go all day, every day, and like you get stronger, yeah, but like you get so exhausted that like by like an hour into the day, every day, even at your peak strength, you're exhausted and you can only like stumble and like limp to where you want to go the rest of the day or something. You know what I mean? And it's like that's kind of what I think of myself at the moment when I'm coherent and rational and logical and uh, thinking deeply, I guess, a little bit. Anyways, so yeah. Okay, so two more things is I think I was on the ground floor of the Vanilla Classic WoW World of Warcraft Paladin forums, and like you would not be you would be amazed at like how many ideas they came up with that World of Warcraft eventually implemented for class structures and balance and resources and mechanics and so on. It's kind of insane actually how much vanilla World of Warcraft basically like they basically used all the ideas we had for vanilla World of Warcraft days for new class mechanics and stuff. Like that was an explosion of creativity and genius back then that has driven World of Warcraft forwards for 20 years since then. Yeah. In class gameplay mechanics, like energy or like the holy power for paladins, where you use a bit of mana for Crusader Strike and you get one charge of holy power out of 5, and you can use up to 3 at once. I was proposing that disciplined priests become monks and heal 25% of the melee damage done to them, and inner fire becomes more of a sort of like a ability changer and like give priests a melee set of abilities as discipline priests in a monk-like way. So like you can tell Mr. Pandaria monks basically follow that. So that's kind of like one of my things. Like, and like I was like, and like I remember I posted one idea and I can't remember if it's like which version they picked, but they kind of picked both in a way too at different times. Where like one person was like, this holy power could be used to paladin holy power could be used to get a free flash of light, which is like a minor healing spell that's cheap, and 1.5-second cast time. Make it do what's called a proc, which means a percent chance on hit to activate. For a free instant cast holy flash of light, or like a direct proc of like 60% mana cost reduction and instant cast on its own, so that you didn't have to use holy power. And these things were like, so it's like, okay, that's like things they've actually done and so on. And one of those was like kind of my idea, I think. You know, um, I think other people came up with it too, though. So like, I can't claim entire credit, but I was one of those who was very vocal about pushing for that one particular thing, basically, because I wanted to see paladins, retribution paladins, hit stuff, but also heal a little bit with good armor and just do a bit less damage than warriors to make up for it, but not too much less, and make it so that they can continue to do it all raid for the entire boss battle instead of run out of mana, which is one of the reasons why vanilla paladins weren't allowed to hit stuff. Um, you know, um, yeah. So, anyways, so that's like um, one of those things, and I believe I saw Crimson Vial for rogues actually basically mentioned by the rogue forums and so on. Actually, back in Vanilla WoW as well, which is like it's basically the last 2 or 3 expansions have had it and so on. So it's like, okay, like that's like five expansions, and then it was implemented and so on. So like it's amazing how much vanilla World of Warcraft ingenuity spawned the last 20 years of World of Warcraft innovation. It was like on the ground floor. I was on the ground floor basically for all that, watching it or participating in it for paladins particularly, and so on. I remember seeing someone say they should split druids into cat, bear, moonkin, and tree forms. So I know that's like a innovation that was vanilla World of Warcraft and so on, because I actually saw the thread for that and so on. And also, moving on to a different topic, I was kind of on the ground floor for the anti-woke movement. I didn't participate in Gamergate really, but like I was anti-woke before, back in 2011 after the Occupy movement, because I saw how they treated people when they were leftists that got a little bit of power in the camps, Occupy camps. And like I was warning everyone I could, and then Gamergate happened, but I didn't find out about it until after it was more or less done. And I started talking to people and like telling them about the potential for leftist totalitarianism, and like back in 2014 and so on. So like that's my credentials. I've been on the ground floor for the genius, inspirational explosion of ideas for vanilla classic WoW, and the ground floor for the Occupy, or not the Occupy, the well, I was in the beginning of the Occupy movement too. I was a supporter of it and so on, talking about it. I was like socialist at the time, and the Occupy movement broke me out of socialism basically because I watched the left be terrible and betray every principle they said they had before. Um, I was at the ground floor of the just after Gamergate anti-woke movement, basically, or just at the tail end of Gamergate anti-woke movement. So, like, those are my credentials. That's my experiences. Um, but I'm kind of tired of it. I'm tired of being an activist. I'm tired of arguing without personal gain for things that I think would help everyone else out and so on. I want to earn money, make something of myself personally. I want to get a following. I want to enjoy life. I want to entertain people in exchange for some good vibes and friendly times and maybe a little bit of money if they feel like it. Um, and, don't take this the wrong way, hopefully, because, like, this is, like, you can tell from my past that these sorts of, this serious topics for the benefit of others and so on is a big thing for me. One of the only ways that I can tell myself to enjoy life and have fun and play video games to entertain people, even if it's a potential career, is one of the finessing aspects is I tell myself, if I attract a following, then if I have some wisdom on politics, culture, religion, philosophy, psychology, art, community, and my career is entertaining people and I'm successful, then I'll reach more people with my messages and so on. I know that sounds very utilitarianist, or using others as instruments, kind of in a sense. Go, my flying monkeys, do my will, do politics exactly this way. Um, and it kind of is in a sense. I recognize the problem with that in a sense. Um, but it's like that's not exactly why I'm shifting, and that's not the core of why I'm shifting. Because, like I said, I think I have influence with one or two influential people already, just no one else basically. So that's not the core of why I'm trying to shift focus. Um, and I will explain something about Gamergate and the Occupy movement and the feminists in video games at the beginning of Gamergate and so on that is really universal for the West. And that is culture and art became hollowed out over time through pop culture and so on. So, like the deeper human experience and relatability to fiction and so on began to dwindle. And whereas Lord of the Rings is basically reactionary, um, um, Miss Marvel is leftist. And you can tell the quality wise and difference in worldview and so on there. You know what I mean? Like leftism is basically slop culture in a sense, or it gave rise to slop culture because leftism is like anti purpose or anti human to the average person basically. It's against the human experience, like it actively is against it, and slop is kind of like bare bones, like maybe like a small mouthful of meat on like a whole rib of like a big cow or something, but you got to find that one piece of meat, that one mouthful of meat on the big cow bones. That's slop culture. Whereas deep human experiences are like a prime peak steak or a good burger or a pizza or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like sausages, pancakes, waffles all together kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like a chocolate cake or chocolate mousse or like a chocolate milkshake or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like that's what deep human experiences are basically, for like as an Eden metaphor and so on. So if I was a muse or a mentor to the influential people, I'm basically giving them the thumbs up that they've mastered my knowledge, wisdom, experience, and that they're not necessarily totally on their own, but they've got it covered now. All the things that I can really do are done now for teaching and so on. There'll be the occasional thing that comes up that I'm like, oh, I have an insight here or something, a flash of inspiration for something, or like some sort of like situation that I'm like, oh, I know what to do here and so on. Maybe, and maybe they don't. But that's a matter of just sort of the nobody's perfect and everyone has their own strengths kind of. And like as you develop and experience new things, you come up with new insights and so on. Kind of guarantee basically is what I've learned. But otherwise, I'm going to train my mind in fiction and philosophy, art, culture, and in 6 or 7 months or so, basically, I'll save up enough for a computer, a brand new computer that's twice as good as my broken gaming PC in every way. Double the cores, double the regular RAM, double the virtual memory RAM, VRAM. And we'll start playing games and live streaming them and so on. And oh, I forgot to mention what the thing is. The feminist and video games thing, and so on, and the gamigators and all that. Because culture and art got hollowed out and stopped speaking to the human experience, more and more, um, people decided to inject real world politics into it as a way of, as a cheap or shortcut way of putting meaning and purpose into them. So they didn't speak to delicate, intricate aspects of human life that are relevant in a deep and understandable way to many people. They took a side in politics and said, okay, that's going to mean something to half the people, but not the other half. And we're just going to push it. And it gradually morphed from like, we're talking about it to like, we're picking a side as artists. And like, then they became from artists who are a little biased into full on propagandists for tyranny and so on. Um, and Gamergate basically was a rebellion against that, but even they've turned towards politics primarily. Sargon, Arch, V, Dev, you know. Um, Asmongold started gaming, and he's politics now. Destiny started gaming, he's politics now. So it's like everyone's looking for something deep and meaningful, and like they're ignoring true art as a possibility. And they're focusing on politics because the culture war, and like there's a turn of phrase or a quote that is as good war is so terrible lest or unless we grow too fond of it. And like that's what's going on with a lot of people in a sense. And they've made successful careers doing it, but there's no real room for that. But there's room for entertainment and so on. Um, because everyone's gone into politics and everyone's at each other's throats and so on. So it's like, oh my god, everyone's fighting like crazy. There's no middle ground, there's no negotiation. Everyone's just split absolutely and so on. And the thing is, while I believe the left are crazy and kind of evil, um, you know, um, they're a relative minority. The diehard left are a relative minority, and like they basically manipulate people's goodwill with victim complexes and so on, or victim I'm a victim claims. And like the thing is, social manipulation for people is a lot harder to do if they're in cult if they've experienced true art. Like if they've experienced deep human if they've experienced explorations into the deep human condition, then anything relating to that on some level basically becomes like 200 times harder to manipulate them wrongfully on. So it's anti-totalitarianism to explore art and culture properly and like have nuance and subtlety and so on. And the thing I want to say is nuance and subtlety doesn't mean like girl boss breaks a nail and that's like her vulnerability or something. And it's not like awful person was abused as a child and therefore it's okay that they're like trying to genocide the white race and so on. That's not nuance and subtlety. That's propaganda and failure to launch in regards to nuance and subtlety. But I understand that some people are trying to do it anyways. As their version, they're just kind of lost in the weeds of propaganda and so on. So I respect that they're trying to find connection with the rest of humanity, but at the same time, they're not really doing it. And I get that I'm kind of like the same way in a way, in my right wingedness. But I believe the right wing is the future, regardless. Because they're more in tune with the deep human connections than the left is why I support them, because they're less totalitarian than the left is, basically. And I won't get into the weeds on why that is or anything like that, but basically, Lord of the Rings versus Miss Marvel or something like that, or Ironheart, um, the new series, or Robin Hood, ROBYN Hood. Like Disparu does a good job of critiquing those and making fun of them and so on, as totally batshit and insane. To give one example, it's like Ironheart's like, Tony Stark had billions of dollars. I have to steal to make my stuff. And of course, the first Iron Man movie has the bad guy basically saying, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. When Tony Stark invented the new reactor type for energy and the first Iron Man suit and everything in like a cave in Afghanistan or something with a box of scraps. So like Ironheart is like ignoring the first Iron Man movie, and it's like it's not realistic in the Marvel Cinematic Universe context even. You know, she's not a victim; she's a thief, and she's not able to do what Tony Stark could do. But they're claiming she's better than him. It's like, okay, well, that's bullshit. Just in the internal logical consistency of the universe of that work of art or fiction or culture, basically. So, like, that versus Lord of the Rings and the masterpiece that is. It says it all, really. And like Godzilla versus King Kong, the New Empire, whatever it's called, is slop, basically. Or Jurassic Park 7 or whatever it is slop. Um, it's a paint by numbers kind of thing. You can get it done kind of, and it's vaguely appealing in some ways, but it's really bare bones and not that. It lacks a lot of details that add panache or something to it and so on. So, yeah. Anyways, that is why I am going to study philosophy, art, culture, and so on, and save up for a new computer so I can play video games and so on. To live stream, to entertain people while talking to them and them talking to me. Because I want to build up my own life finally and stop sacrificing and sabotaging myself to help other people. Because I'm at a point where it's like, am I really helping anyone if I can't help myself? If I help myself get better and earn money and so on, then I'll have money to give to people myself. Not to give to myself, but give from myself. So like I don't have to worry about society being better necessarily to take care of those around me. I can do it myself, kind of thing. And it's like that's kind of my logic. So you can tell I'm still like serious minded and so on. So if I feel if something's off about me entertainment wise and so on, it's because I'm like very like unused to playfulness over the last 8 years of trying to make up for being a total man child in the past and so on. And also, being jobless makes me feel useless, and I feel like I have to earn it by activism and so on, which I can do technically right now. But it seems like a dead end proposition for my life, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little tired of it. But at the same time, if I do have that influence, then I kind of have a duty to give a heads up and warn and instruct on, mentor, or relay insights to those people I have influence over that have influence over others, um, when inspiration strikes in some serious way. But I'm finally at the point where I think I can like just relax a little bit and focus on myself, career, art, culture, and community, and let the politics, religions, philosophy, and psychology pop up when someone brings it up, um, without actually focusing on it, but letting it happen instead of trying to force it and then focusing on the first four things I mentioned there. Um, and I realize that I'm like you shouldn't mix business with pleasure is what they say, but like if I didn't have a business angle to video games, I probably wouldn't play them. And that's not to say I don't want to play video games, it's that I feel guilty for playing them when I'm not having a job, basically. So it's not like I'm like a games journalist who doesn't know how to play games, doesn't love games, and so on. It's more like I feel like I'm wasting my time when I should be like saving the world or something. You know what I mean? It's like I feel guilty doing it. It's not that I hate doing it in of itself. And my explanation for why everyone went into politics, from gaming and arts and culture and so on, is my explanation that I'm not the only one with this problem. It's a societal wide problem. And um, so if I seem a little off, I'm not the only one. Um, but hopefully, I'll give an example of my sense of humor. Okay, so like basically, you know the word thick, THICC. It's a woman who's a little wider, maybe big butt, big breasts, maybe a little bit of pudge on their stomach, a little tiny bit, who's attractive still. Or maybe extra attractive because they have a little bit of body fat and they're not like a skeleton. Um, Big hips, basically. And you know what a cup is for a bra? Well, I was thinking, why don't we start calling big-breasted women thick cups? Like hiccups, except thick. So that's my sense of humor. So that's the kind of thing that I'm going to be focusing on a little bit more, basically, and kind of enjoying and like relaxing and so on. I have these occasional things, and this is a part of me all the same. I've just been beating it down, going, no, I have to save the world, I have to save the world, I have to save the world, over and over again, because like my sense of manly duty and honor. Because I've been in tough situations. I grew up in a rough childhood, and like, you know, part of my motivation is because I've got a bleeding heart for like those who suffer and are oppressed and like tyrannized and like subjected to terror and barbarism and violence and so on. And I don't mean like just any violence. I mean like really unfair violence. Like that's what I mean by I have to save the West, protect people from that, and like through activism and stuff. Put an end to the tyranny and barbarism, basically. You know, and that's a bleeding heart situation because I know what it's like to be under those kinds of situations and the gaslighting and everything. And it's like, oh my god, I know how to deal with it sort of in a way. And like, I owe my expertise to those who can spread the word to put a stop to all that, basically. That's my obsession, basically. And I just need to get away from my obsession into something a little more relaxed and healthy and so on. And I've finally hit the point where like I've possibly relayed as much teaching and information and wisdom that whoever is listening to me basically has it covered, um, more or less, and I don't have to focus on it anymore, basically. Because they've got careers doing this kind of thing. I've been doing this for free without any payment. So I need to start getting paid, basically. And I'm not going to get paid from them. So I need to find a different way to get paid. And if I can have fun getting paid, then that's fine by me. you know, I'm going to, yeah. But my principle and philosophy is going to be I'm going to have fun live streaming games. And if you want to join in, feel free. I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to beg for you. I'm not going to play games that I hate. I'm just going to play what I find fun and shoot the shit, make jokes, maybe give occasional insight and wisdom in things that I've mastered, politics, religion, or psychology, Carl Jung psychology, or Christianity, religion. And eventually I'll learn philosophy quite well. So I have that under my belt, and I can just, if it becomes relevant in the conversation, I'll slip a little bit of a quip or insight into the conversation, but I'm going to let it happen, not force it to happen anymore. And culture, art, community as my career, basically, and a little bit of silliness and whimsy, and sort of retire from the culture wars as a veteran, sort of, half retired. Still going to talk about it a little bit when I think it's really important or it's like relevant to something someone asked or something, but not going to gung ho all the way till my brain hurts every single day on it, basically. It's a bit like an addiction, actually. So it's like, if you watch me trying to entertain in about 6 or 7 months, and you're like, wow, he's really opinionated. Well, it's a bit of an addiction, this culture war stuff, and it's not healthy, and it's like, whatever. I'm going to try and move away from it, but I know I can't move away entirely necessarily. I don't think that's in the cards, either in my disposition or in what might be necessary or important for the good of my society and civilization. But I'm going to move away mostly. And if it sounded manipulative to say I'm going to entertain for a living so that I get a bigger following so I can broadcast my views to manipulate society's outcomes, that's what Destiny does. That's what Arch Warhammer does. That's what Dev does. You know, when you think about it, that's what Anita Sarkeesian did. That's what Asmongold does. Or basically started doing, sort of, in a sense, going political after getting into gaming. I'm already political, so I'm going to get into gaming instead. Other direction, basically. You know. But if I tell myself a bigger following means I can actually reach more people with important stuff, if it's serious, kind of nullifies the argument that I should remain a completely humorless automaton, sort of grinder of put my nose to the grindstone every day, all day, and so on, without any career or wife or children, or, you know, basically like not building myself up financially or life situation wise and so on. And yeah, and this way also, I guess one more thing that's a little less Machiavellian sounding, but still like kind of innocent in a sense, is if I learn how to build my life up, then I can be an example to other people so that they can build their lives up. And that, and if I have wisdom that I can share and I'm taken seriously because I actually have succeeded at building my life up, and people will take me seriously because I've actually succeeded, and then like I can help by giving direct advice, or I can help by being an example of how to succeed, or I can help by like just giving a little bit of money or something, and like just being solid myself for other people. And that might help more people than my secret activism and so my secret influencer activism and so on. Because that's really my goal. Like, if you check out my full right-wing manifesto and 3 core pillars video, like that's my basic like entire worldview in a nutshell. You know, I'm too serious right now. I'm getting myself a headache. I'm like, oh. But this video's been going on for a while, so I'll cut it short now. Said everything I want to, basically. Please don't think lesser of me if I'm politicized. A little bit, at least. I'm moving away from politics into pleasure, video games, basically, and entertainment, and whimsy, and fun, and wit. And I'm new to the sillier side of life again, after being kind of in there as a man-child, and then like being burned by my own inadequacy in that regard and maturity, and then trying to be super mature, and now I'm kind of like navigating, exploring, reawakening my inner child that died from trauma recent, like the last 6 years, and like it's like holy crap, dude. And if you want to know my traumas, basically, check out Battle Scars Fight Insane. It's like my 4th or 5th video ever made on this channel. And like, that's what I did to myself out of like terror of like, and feeling regret for wrongdoing and like all sorts of things. And like, that's the kind of trauma I'm talking about. So like, don't think I'm like just some secret schemer who's like, I'm gonna play video games as a front for my politics. My politics comes first at the moment, and I'm moving away from that into video games and pleasure and fun. And it's a matter of how far in that direction I want to go versus how much I want to keep of my serious, mature, wannabe stuff and focus and so on. Because I can't be all 4 things and then all 4 other things. I can't be CAC and PrEP. Can't be politics, religion, psychology, philosophy, and culture, art, community, and career. I can't be all 8 things all the time at once. And I gotta focus a little bit. And I've been focusing on PRP, and I gotta focus on CAC now. And as another joke, I'm a perpy CACChead. Which means I'm a preppy dickhead. That's kind of how I. That's why I put it. That's why I put CACC and PRPPy. Yeah, but that's an in joke. That's not an in joke. It's just a silly little joke. He also has a little dice of humor, and that's the kind of thing I want to focus on more and more.